Well, it's been a while since I've done some streaming stuff. I suppose I could go look it up somewhere, but I'm not going to, as I like saying. You know, my kids had to be at school for most of the month of January, and they just went back this week. And when we have my 7 and 10-year-old at school, I need to do my work and take care of the baby. I guess she's about 10 months old now, and that means that it's hard for me to do streaming stuff. I'll show you the current status of the baby here. Let's switch over to the pictures. She's doing all right. There she is a couple weeks ago, eating stuff. You can see she's getting into solids. But that cuteness, as it were, is why I haven't been streaming much. I've been doing tons of those little tiny videos. I'm sure y'all are all into that stuff. Just as a reminder, if you're watching this for some reason and don't know where those videos are, I'm gonna go over the book I've been starting as well. But you can always go to tanzutalk.com or just tanzu.tv. But you can see there's a good playlist there. All sorts of stuff I've been doing. Uh, I did this interview recently, which I think is definitely worth looking into. And there's a bunch of tiny little videos. I probably should have broadcast some of these on the stream. Like this is another good one, but whatever. I didn't. I've been thinking a lot recently about, it's nicer to hold your content in and have it all go out at once. Not all at once, instead of piecemealing it out. I came across I forget her last name. I just came across it this morning in the Paris Review of all places. And I think she wrote a book called Ongoingness, and it's a great mixture of like, I don't know, poetic prose, aphorisms, little vignettes, diary type of things. It's kind of interesting. I'll have to dig more into it. But let's get to a little bit of the content that I was more interested in. I think you can add a stream marker. I'm gonna try that out. I don't know what that does. It's very exciting. Let me fix the labels for this show as well. We'll say back to live. So, uh, so I started. I think I mentioned when I started doing this streaming that I was going to start working on a book about mindset and mindset shifts. So I've got that finalized with O'Reilly. Now, of course, it's one of these little O'Reilly things, so they call them reports, which is fine. I call them books. I've got the monolithic transformation and the business bottleneck. But we started putting this together. This is the title that they suggested, which seems fine to me. I'll go with it for now. And it's writing a. I'm kind of considering this book the third in a trilogy of those other two, because together they make sort of a full length book. But it is kind of annoying to have to figure out not repeating too much and not going over the same concepts. So, I get especially excited when there's something new that I can figure out writing on. And, in the writing process, there's a lot of, at least the way that I do it, there's a lot of writing to discover what it is you're writing about. Now, that said, you know, there is, we got a fancy outline here. Let's take a look at that and give you a tour of the book, at least what's planned. Now, you would think, what they kind of teach you in school is it's a good idea to write an outline and then start writing under each thing, which I don't know. I've never really gotten good at that. But you can see there's kind of the introductory material. I wanted to kind of cover why changing someone's mindsets, why changing culture is so hard. I need to rearrange this section. And then the rest of what I wanted to have is basically like, I love doing like cookbooks or laundry list of things. So I'm going to just kind of list a bunch of little recipes, little patterns and anti patterns and things like that to go through. It's actually a pretty good outline. I feel like if I just stuck to it, I could write a lot faster than kind of squeezing out what I'm doing. But speaking of squeezing out, let's get to the little section I wanted to kind of talk through. So one of the mindset shifts, that I wanted to go over is this notion of having an end-to-end view of things, right? So if you're using your software, my whole thing and everyone else's thing about what digital transformation is with regards to software is you use your in-house software as your product, as the thing that runs your business, as they used to say, not just a project that you have going. And as always, an example of not that. What was I doing recently? Oh, I was filing some expenses, some health insurance expenses, and you can just tell their software is like ancient, and they really just took an existing business workflow, kind of adding receipts and coding them, getting the person to code them as much as possible. And then it's just the UI is ancient, and it's just an old project that people haven't been studying and updating as they're doing. And I have a feeling that when the software developers work on this expense reimbursement thing for the health insurance company, those developers are not sort of giving input about, wouldn't this be a better way to do the software and a better way to actually run the business, to do things for people? They probably rarely ever change the business based on the way that their customers are using the software, which is a shame because you could learn a lot about how your customers expect to do business with you if you pay attention to how they use the software and have experience. But anyways, speaking of rehashing stuff, so moving over to that product way, one of the things that I was thinking through is, where is that section? Is this idea here, right? Like everyone always talks about shift left in the context of DevOps. And what they're talking about here is a lot of, let me magnify this, maybe even more. A lot of what the discussion is about nowadays is security, right? Like, or governance. And originally, DevOps was all about shifting operations, release management, configuration management left, and having developers be involved in that, and also having operations people be involved in the development of the software, right? Like, again, my very brief summary of DevOps is like, we did all this agile development and we had all sorts of problems scaling and running it in production. So the developers thought like, well, why don't we treat production like part of the application and code it? And also, why don't we developers learn how stuff runs in production? We kind of like shifted that left into programming. Now, previously, before we would use terms like shift left, there was almost when Agile was running about, as I kind of cover here, like QA was subsumed, testing was subsumed into the development phase, and there was a development itself was kind of shifted left. This is why the directional metaphor gets a little screwy, but development itself shifted left to project management and what we would call product management nowadays, right? The development team got more and more involved in specifying what the requirements are, those stories as they were, and actually managing the features and the feature set is now part of what the team does, right? So a lot of this gets down to when you're doing your software work, right? Like the more times that you have to hand off to someone else, hand off from a business analyst coming up with the requirements. I mean, originally you have the business. You can't see my hand, it's way over there. Originally you have the business, and they have handed off to IT, to a business analyst who writes up, the features, what the software needs to do. And then that business analyst probably hands it off to a project manager who starts kind of sorting things out. And the project manager hands it off to the development team, and, so forth. And then they hand it off to the QA people, who hands it off to governance and security people to check on it. And, it's kind of that serial waterfall thing. But I think what's more important nowadays is that handing off loses fidelity. It incurs time. There's meetings. There's mismatched priorities. So instead, I think what we're always trying to do in kind of the meatware space of software development is compress that big chain down into more and more of less people who have a bigger view of everything happening, right? So that they don't have these handoffs that kind of add in time and lose the original intent of what's going on, people's priorities mixing up, right? So it's the too many kitchens in the kitchen. Too many kitchens, too many chefs in the kitchen. Not even chefs, you just got a plumber in there too. And you might have, like me, just, moving about. You want to move responsibility. That's a terrible metaphor. I'm going to move on. So nowadays, we talk a lot about security needing to shift left. And I think, what I'm going to do in this area is use kind of a little discussion of DevSecOps as an example of this kind of shifting everything into that end-to-end mindset, right? But there's a few other points that I think I want to kind of think out loud about here as I've been writing up, and that is, I made this coffee and I haven't drank any of it. We got a big fancy, not a big, but we got a fancy coffee machine. It's very European style. At least the coffee that it makes. But you press a few buttons and it'll grind you coffee, or it'll make you a single or a double espresso, and it's got a frother, all of that kind of stuff. I thought I would do something here. Usually you have a milk frother, you get a separate thing. But I put the milk in first and I frost it. And then with the same cup, I put that in to the underneath it to get a double espresso into it. So see you do it all in the one cup. Now, you don't get that fancy layering of stuff on top, but I haven't quite figured out how to get the pillowy frothing milk that people seem to love and that you can make designs on. I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna add another marker. I don't know how you label these, but oh, you add it with description. So look, I'm gonna add a description. That description being got back on track. Discussing book. I'm gonna add it right there. Boom. I guess that's fun. Anyways, so this mindset of paying attention to an end-to-end view, right? Knowing all of the activities, as people sometimes call it, a value chain or whatever. I think that's a mindset that we in the thought lord and ladying world, the thought leadership world, or the thought pointing out world, maybe that's what I would prefer to think of it doing. Like, I think we kind of assume everyone knows that because we've been talking about it forever. But when I do a lot of these executive roundtables nowadays, where we get, I don't know, like 8. We had one recently that had like 60 people. Not much of a round table, more like a round hall. But I kind of go over this concept of end to end stuff, and there's some people who are like moving towards that. But what I hear back in reply is that organizations still struggle to have that end to end view versus that silo view. So I think it is, the conceit of the mindset thing is that there's these shifts in what you think, how you think reality is, your mindset, that kind of cause you to operate in whatever ways, right? So the mindset of a project way of doing software causes the type of software that we see most large organizations doing now. If you have a product oriented mindset, you start thinking about things in a different way and start behaving in a different way. It's not some weird new thing of operating, it's just the natural thing you would do. Um, like if you went from a eating meat to being a vegan, it might be a little weird, but like you have a different mindset of what you want to eat. And so, you don't have to like transition to the weirdness of eating things in a new way. It's just your new mindset. Another terrible analogy. Anyways, having this mindset that what I want to have as management, especially, is an end-to-end view. I need to have the mindset that I'm interested in everything that happens to get that software out the door. I think that's an important shift to make sure people move to. So I wanted to explain that a little bit, and I think this is where I left off yesterday, kind of like thinking about the implications for it, right? And I think there's 3 that I've come to so far. We'll see if I come up with some other ones. And that is, once you see this entire end-to-end process, you want to own it because you understand that everything in that process is what you need to be successful with software, right? Even, and was kind of the point of my business bottleneck book, even that end-to-end process of the business side specifying stuff, right? Like that you need to be aware of, and ultimately to some extent in control of, if you want your software to be successful. Because if you build software in the wrong business, it doesn't get marketed well, it doesn't plug back into the rest of the organization, people aren't going to use it, you're not going to solve the right problems, right? So the software is not going to be successful. I guess the entire organization to some extent is the end-to-end process. So you always want to try to own as much of that pipeline. See, I don't even know what to call this thing, but like let's call it end-to-end ownership. That's weird. But the more of that you own and control, the more control you'll have over the quality of the product, right? So you'll be able to go back and kind of hone what the features are that people are saying. You'll have the ability to use the various frameworks and things that you need for your UIs that you like, whatever. Now, shift left things outside of the time. Anything that outside of the, we call this concept the value line, which is a good concept, but it's a little too inside jargony. So I'll have to figure out some way of putting it. But in seeking to own as much of that stuff as possible, the other thing that you end up needing to do, and this is where, as a vendor, we're very biased and, we want you to definitely believe this idea. That said, I see large organizations following it and it works out for them. So it seems validated. Sometimes this maybe is a shocker, but sometimes a software vendor is selling you something because it's a good idea and it works and there's value in it. Just throwing that out there. But the other consequence of this is that as you're widening the ownership of owning more and more of the process, right? Like you want to find out things that you don't need to spend time on. You want to free up as much time as possible to spend on looking at that entire end-to-end process and really fine-tuning what you need to. So you basically want to automate as many things as possible that are not valuable, right? And they might be necessary and complex, but you know, I think ultimately how you do your configuration management and ultimately how you do your release management, all of this infrastructure stuff, like it's not valuable to moving pixels around the screen. And it's something that you want to centralize and standardize on, right? I mean, you might want to use a VMware Tanzu stack, essentially. Now, this comes up a lot, and this is a discussion point we've had a couple of times. Is in these when I've been talking with people, they're often asked like, "Oh, developers keep writing all this infrastructure stuff. What do we do about that?" And most recently, someone was saying, a new team of developers came in. They didn't like the previous ORM, object relational mapping, how you extract stuff from a database and kind of represent it in code and vice versa. And so they wrote their own framework. And now I think some other development team is writing their own framework as well. They call this, they reference this as the not invented here syndrome, which I haven't heard NIH in a long time. But those are the kind of things like developers love building that stuff, and it's something that I think you've got to be really careful if you're paying attention end to end. You'll surface these components, and you don't want to have your developers working on that stuff. There's no competitive advantage you're going to get from how you load data from your database and put stuff back in there. It's a ridiculous thing to worry about. But with that end-to-end view, right? Like if you're someone managing and owning that end-to-end process, you need to find those little things and really enforce that people don't use them. Now, there's the whole platform as a product discussion about how you ongoing treat those things as a product so that they're not dead and static, but so that they do evolve and meet the needs developers have. So then, oh look, I've mixed up. I went over three, like automate as many ancillary things as possible. So what is shift things outside? It's possible. Yeah. Let's just call it shift left. All right. So I just went over point three, which is fine. But now I remember what point two was there. And that is, I guess, codifying a principle that I've kind of already verbally gone over, which is really this is where the notion of shift left comes in, right? So as you look to that end-to-end process, more than likely things that are not sort of in the end-to-end process under your control, you're always going to be looking at stuff that happens after software development, after the creation of the product. Let's put it that way, right? I don't want to aggrandize the developers too much, but they are the ones who are creating that product, who are working on the thing, right? So that's in essence, the most important thing is the thing itself, the app, the software. But you want to look at things that happen after that and figure out how much of that you can shift left. You can shift the development phase as possible, right? And again, in the DevOps world, we did that with configuration and release management. It's still kind of ongoing with monitoring and things like that. If you look at something like the Tanzu observability stuff, you can see a lot of this idea of shifting what I used to call management and monitoring of software into more and more into the development phase and making it easier for developers to access, and with tracing stuff that a lot of you see a lot in the Spring world and other areas, the ability to put tracers into your code, right? So you're shifting a lot of that monitoring and management stuff left. But nowadays, I think there's two things that are in the process of shifting left, needing to be shifted left, and that is, I always put it under the realm of governance, the governance of compliance and of security, right? And a lot of those things are still kind of done outside of the core developer phase of product management. And so it is an example of, you need to, when you're owning this end-to-end process, you want to always be searching for things that are happening after the development phase and think, if we shift those left into development, will it make things better? And I think what we've learned in the theory that everyone's operating under is that, obviously, with security, the sooner that you get security involved, and the sooner that you actually are writing your code to have, you know, secure stuff, and that you're auditing, that you're following the policy and things like that, the more secure the stuff is going to be. I mean, I'm being kind of vague in my phrasing here because I'm just sort of pointing at, I don't know, pointing at ideas rather than making them explicit. Hopefully, I'll flesh it out in the book a little bit more. And then governance is the same way, right? Like, if you can actually involve the auditing people in the phase of software development, just as you do with security people and expertise, you can start to program that, right? You can do governance as code, so to speak. You can do security as code. And in the same way that developers have done a good job uh, integrating together in all that release and configuration management, that DevOps stuff, and kind of solving a lot of the problems that we had because production was separate than development. I think the hope is, and I don't know if this has been fully proven out, but it's definitely, you know, the interesting thing going on now, that if we take that same, let's apply programming notions to security and compliance, we'll get similar good results. We'll make it not only more efficient and automated, but better. So I think that's, you know, those are three things I've kind of come at that are consequences of that end-to-end view. And again, they're like, I think they're mindset shifts that people need to get to. Hence, being in a mindset book there. So that's the little bit that I wanted to go over today. Just a preview of what I'm noodling around with and writing up there. Now, as always, you know, if you're watching this live stream, do you know where to go to see the other Tanzu TV things? They're just over there in Twitch. And if you go to tanzu.tv, I'll show you. You can see all of the stuff that we have going on. Oh, look, I'm going to use another marker with description. Wrapping up is what I'll call that there. Again, I have no idea what those are, but you can see, you know, we as always, Tanzu Tuesdays going on strong. Lots of things there. There's been a lot of code things, and Nate's been doing a good job interviewing all sorts of people. Here's my. This is not entirely accurate. I need to start doing it. Maybe I'll move it to 10. As I'm writing this book, I like to have the time when I get back. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But we got all that stuff going on. You know, you can click into there to find details and stuff like that. And of course, we post all of these to YouTube, so you can see all of the lovely archives of it. And you know, if you haven't been watching the little short videos that I have, you know, these are tiny short videos that I put in Twitter and LinkedIn and other places. You can check out plenty of those. So with that, we'll see everyone next time. I think what I'll do is I'll try to start doing these on the T days, Tuesday and Thursday. I think doing them daily is a little too much, and maybe every now and then, if I've got a special, I'll do an emergency stream on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Now we've got Rita and I in the Tanzu Talk podcast world. We've got some interviews that we're planning out, so hopefully I'll get around to streaming those as content as well when we do them. We'll see everyone next time. Bye bye.